put in a code last time.
Okay.
Nicholas said, I don't know why you would have to.
Okay, because I didn't this time.
Yeah, maybe it's because we're...
Okay, we're live.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Lisa Funk from the Hello Neighbor team.
And I'm Martha Fuller from the Hello Neighbor team.
And today we are going to take you through what we call a better buyer experience and a better listing experience. I'm going to talk about the buyer side of the process, and Martha's going to talk about the seller side of the process. So, for my presentation today, I'm going to assume that most people that are watching are on the newer side. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So when you're working with a buyer, your job is really to educate that buyer and to set their expectations. You really should assume nothing. They probably don't know anything about the process, and even someone who has bought in the past really needs to be educated because it's a new process. And we have realized over time that it's all about setting expectations up front. When you set the expectations up front, it makes it a lot smoother for all parties, and especially your buyers. Our job is to take the stress out of things. So before our agents or ourselves actually start working with a buyer, we always suggest that you make a buyer appointment and you sit down with them. So maybe just have a cup of coffee with them, have a little process that you take them through to educate them on the home buying process. So when you have that buyer appointment, you need to listen and ask questions and ask more questions. It's all about learning what they're looking for. So, we also have a buyer intake sheet, which might be a good idea for you to develop something like that, where, and you start off by asking obvious questions. So, what are they looking for as far as square footage? Do they want a backyard? Is that important to them? Do they want something low maintenance? Are they interested in having a pool? And if there's not a pool, do they want an area where they could build a pool? Do they want a garage? How many spaces do they want? How many bedrooms do they need? How many bathrooms, etc. And deeper, really, what is their reason for moving? If it's a first-time buyer, obviously they want to get into the market, but
they don't want to live in an apartment anymore.
Well, especially after being stuck in their apartment for the last few months with coronavirus. So it's really important to understand what their reason for moving is, because you want to keep coming back to that reason. When they're stressed out or when they're not finding a home, you need to remind them why they're doing this.
And Lisa, don't you think that sometimes when you keep asking questions and you keep having that conversation about them and why they want to move, they oftentimes uncover things they didn't even think about.
Right.
Really important, or that might not be important to them. So I think it's really important to go into that conversation almost as a detective.
Yeah, really good point. If they have been a homeowner in the past, ask them what they loved about that last home, and why. What did they love about their last neighborhood and why? If you're working with a first-time buyer.
Hi.
This is the class.
This is the class.
Just so you know, we have people that just walked into class, so we're going to be.
No, that's okay.
No worries at all.
Have a seat.
So we're going to be.
Jessica.
Hi, Jessica. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Martha. Nice to meet
What's
you.
your name?
Martha.
Martha.
Yeah.
And this is what we're covering right now. So back to our StreamYard folks, and again, we're going to be kind of going back. So, what is a deal breaker to that buyer? What what is the most important thing? You definitely want to cover that. Ask them, in a perfect world, what would their home look like? Just get them imagining what that is, and hopefully you can help find them that. It's also really important to figure out what kind of buyer you're working with. There's lots of different buyers. For example, you could have the first-time buyer who, a lot of times right now, millennials, and they're all about the facts and the stats. And I have found when I'm working with these buyers, they do a lot of the research themselves. They want to be able to log into your website and look for homes, and they want to stay on top of the trends, and they're really kind of finding homes for you to take them to. Then you have the move up buyer, and those are people that have really outgrown their home. And that, sometimes to get those people off of the fence, you need to show them what they can buy. So there's a lot of education in that process. A lot of times when you're working with these move-up buyers, especially in this market that we're in right now, you're going to want to kind of give them a heads up. They may need to find some temporary housing. But to get them excited, you need to go out and start looking.
Yeah, that's one thing for sure.
Right.
With any buyer, move up buyer, move down buyer, we call it right sizing.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get them out there starting to look at homes, they get more excited and want to start looking at more homes.
Exactly.
Never once in our career have we ever taken somebody out and have them go, oh, I've changed my mind. I don't want to buy a home. Because they get excited.
They do. It's just like looking for a car.
Yeah.
Right?
Once you start looking for a car, guess what? You buy a car. So true.
And you may work with a relocation buyer. So someone who needs to move here for work, and there are certain things to take into consideration, if they're moving from out of state, how to help them on that end. And then you've got the investor buyer, and the investor buyers, they are not attached to the property at all. They're attached to the numbers and making that work. And then,
and just, I hate to keep it,
but
okay. With investor buyers, there's no emotion in that transaction at all. And so don't try to make there be emotion, because the investor doesn't have time for that. They have time for what the bottom line is,
right,
what the repairs are going to cost, and what the margins are. And that's it. There's no emotional attachment, which can oftentimes make the transaction go really smoothly because it takes out all the emotion. But it's definitely more of a business transaction than it would be with a first-time home buyer.
Yeah. And Jessica, I'm Lisa.
Yes.
Did we say that?
We did.
Okay.
Really long.
Anyway.
Thank you.
So then you've got the downsizing buyer, and these are the empty nesters, people that their kids have moved out and they don't need that large of a home anymore. And the funny thing about those downsizing buyers is they always think, if they've got a 3,500 square foot home, I want to go down to 1,500 square feet. And a lot of times with these downsizing buyers, it's kind of the same thing as the move up buyer. You have to take them out and have them start looking, because a lot of times they think they really want to downsize, but what they really want is a single story that's just a little bit smaller than their two-story.
It's a right size.
Right. So why I talk about all these different kinds of buyers is really you need to modify your style and your approach to buyers. And very, very important is also to find out, are they qualified and who is the lender? Not to bash any lenders, but the big banks typically
We love our lenders.
are a little slower, and a lot of times listing agents frown upon the big banks. So it's really important to make sure that your buyer is pre-qualified, and if at all possible, it would be wonderful that you could give your buyer some ideas on who could do a really good job for them. So when you're sitting down at the buyer appointment, you want to explain the process. So, we're going to go into the MLS. We're going to look at homes. I'm going to set up a search for you. We're going to start getting a bunch of emails. There's also the new home sales, and you need to inform your buyer when you're working with them. If you're looking at new homes, if you're looking at models, do not go into the model homes without you, because that you would not be able to represent them. A lot of times, both Martha and I actually have worked in new home sales, and When you go into a model, the new home sales rep is always so friendly, but you've got to remember they represent the seller. So you want to be sure that your buyers know that. And if they're going into open houses on the weekends, they need to let them know that they're working with a realtor. Better yet, give them a stack of your cards so they can, when they're doing that, they can be sure to identify that. Also, it's important to, talk about the timing of the closing. Most closings right now are taking anywhere from 30 to 45 days, closer to 30 really, but 45 days sometimes in cases where there's down payment assistance. So you need to let your buyers know that and help them plan accordingly. And you can educate them on the loan process. Really a good lender will do that too, but you need to talk to them about getting all their documentation to the lender in a timely manner, and time is of the essence, and don't charge anything on your credit cards when you're in the process of buying a home. Keep everything as it is the same.
With buyers too, and sellers, actually, anybody going through a transaction, and we just bought a house. Every realtor should buy or sell a house every couple of years, just to remember how stressful it can be. But there's so much, especially for first-time home buyers, well, for any of them, but just don't assume anything. Don't assume that they know anything, and you have to keep telling them, because they're thinking about, do I want the Samsung refrigerator, or would I rather get the GE refrigerator? And you're feeding them all this information about loans and closing times, closing costs, and everything. And they might need to hear it more than once. Is all where I was thinking, because they're bombarded with a lot of information. It's really overwhelming. Even experienced home buyers and sellers, don't hesitate to repeat yourself, because I think they're bombarded. I know. I mean, I was bombarded.
Yeah.
I forgot to turn the utilities on, so there's that.
So it's really important also to help your buyers understand it's a process of elimination, not selection, meaning, when they first start looking, they're going to look everywhere. Like they're going to, we want to be in Gilbert or Chandler or Tempe or Mesa. It's really more important to get focused on the area that they want to be in, and the neighborhood or neighborhoods that they want to be in. So every time a property comes up, you can look at it quickly, and you're not running around like crazy. So it's really important also to lead them to a decision. I know a lot of times when you're looking at homes, and especially if you've looked at multiple homes with a buyer, they don't really understand what the next step is. And it's really important to say to them, if you think they really like it, say, can you see yourself in this home? What do you like most about this home? How does this compare to other homes? And more importantly, do you think you want to write an offer on this home? I know Martha has probably heard me talk about my clients that I showed properties to for about 8 months. And the wife was always very, very chatty, but the husband never said anything. And, as I became more increasingly frustrated, this was obviously a much different market than it is right now. But I finally realized I am not going to get them on board until I get him on board. So I literally would walk into a house and I would ask him, what do you think of this house? You see yourself in this home? So just, they really need you to lead them. So it's important to think about that. At your buyer consultation appointment, you're going to want to review the paperwork with them. So kind of go over the purchase agreement, the buyer's agency, the buyer broker agreement, if you use one of those, and also the buyer advisory. Advise them that that buyer's advisory is really important to look at and to check out and do your diligence during your home inspection period. So when you're showing property, bring water and snacks, and also have printed planograms of the properties that you're showing them, and make sure that you have a pen and some paper so they can start taking notes. if you are showing them multiple properties, if you have time, run comps so you have an idea of what those properties are worth, but if you don't have time, RPR is a really good source to help you identify comps quickly. Have you ever looked at RPR? It's pretty amazing.
It's
It's
app.
pretty accurate, really.
It's a much, I don't want to slam our MLS, but our app is not up to snuff, I don't think. But the RPR is quick and easy to use. And Lisa's talking about showing property to buyers in a perfect world when you can meet them at a coffee shop and spend an hour and talk about what they want and go through everything. That doesn't always happen that way. A lot of times somebody will say, I just saw 3 houses. I've got to go tonight. I've got, I'm off tomorrow. Can you go? And you don't have time to do all that. So RPR is a great way. I mean, I've been standing in a kitchen and been able to just pull up the value of the home right then. So I can say, when they go, well, how is it priced? And RPR is the most accurate that we found to use. And I always tell them, I need to do some more searching and digging, but I think it's right around 460 or whatever RPR comes up with. But at least it'll give you an idea. Far more accurate than Zillow.
Right.
But I love Zillow, but RPR is more accurate. Yeah.
What's the plan? Is that like the specs of the house?
Yeah,
It's the
when you
MLS
pull up the
sheet.
MLS and
Okay.
and you get the printouts.
Right. Okay.
That's what
It's called Plano.
Gotcha.
So when you get to the all important stage of them deciding on a home, when they're ready to write a contract, you want to do whatever it takes right now to help them make their offer stand out.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. So we suggest calling, using that back phone, right, Martha?
That's right.
Actually calling the cross sale agent, not texting. Calling them, finding out what a perfect offer looks like to them. Terms and price.
And closing costs. Closing date. And
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with saying exactly what you just said. Getting the right offer for a client in your seller's eyes. What does the perfect offer look like? And we're going to say, well, of course, price. Say, well, and what closing date would be ideal for them? And you need to custom fit it to the sellers in this market.
Right. And it's really important to build a rapport with that agent when you're talking to them, because when they present multiple offers to their clients, they can say, boy, Lisa Funk called me and she really seemed like she was on top of her game and professional. She might be really good to work with, as opposed to someone who just emailed an offer and it went into the spam folder. So just being proactive.
And we've had agents on our team that have are listing agents and have gotten multiple offers, and actually, you can't just decide yourself, but to let your clients know, this is how this offer came in, went into my spam, the guy didn't even call me. And I just want you to know that, because if you accept this offer, we have to deal with this for the next 30 days.
Yeah.
So it really behooves you to make a good impression with that listing agent right up front.
Sure. If the property is occupied, consider having your clients write a thank you note to the seller, just saying, gosh, your home was beautiful. We're considering making an offer on it. We'd love for you to consider our offer. Another thing that, a lot of people have been doing is writing letters to the seller, or having your buyer write a letter to the seller, and telling them what they love about the home, how they can see themselves in the home. Include a picture, just something for people to, connect with. A lot of people are doing videos now too.
We're starting to see that.
Like buyers actually doing a video directing it towards the seller. Just something to make it stand out. Some clients are all about the bottom line. I should say some sellers are all about the bottom line, but some sellers are really attached to their home and they want their home to go to someone who's really going to love it. And I think sometimes putting a name or a face with a name does wonders. Most of all, write a clean offer that's absolutely error-free. Don't give them a reason to counter back. Make your offer stand out and perfect. Another thing that,
Well, and by perfect, she means no errors. So
no errors.
check
yeah.
it, double check it,
Yeah.
triple check it before you
Yeah.
send it over, because if there's an initial missed or something isn't correct, they'll have to counter, and that just opens up the time frame for acceptance even longer,
Right.
which
and
they
it
can
has-
get more
yeah,
offers in.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Even like a simple typo, you mean?
a
could be an
simple
error.
typo, yep,
Okay.
Yeah, or
that-
leaving,
misspelling their name
Right.
or
Okay.
like I just received an offer on one of my properties that it had the address right, but it had the city wrong. So, I mean, you just,
I mean, that's,
yeah, just be sure. So, and then another thing that you could do that's really important is have your lender call the listing agent. Don't wait for the listing agent to call the lender when they're considering offers. Have your lender do that. And we've even seen lenders making videos talking specifically about their clients, and that's really making things stand out. And when you send over that offer, confirm that they have the offer. You know, hi, it's Lisa Funk again. I just sent over an offer. I really am looking forward to working with you. So, assuming you get that person under contract, you're going to want to put everyone's contact information in your phone. And when your phone rings, you want to answer the phone. It sounds crazy,
I know.
you know, but boy,
Crazy thought.
you know, sometimes I love texting. I'd much rather send a text than talk, but sometimes you need to talk on the phone. And if your buyers are calling you, you need to answer the phone.
Yeah, or their lender is calling you,
Yeah.
you really need to answer the phone.
Exactly. You know, a way to connect with your clients are, you know, obviously connecting with them on social media and commenting on their posts. You're, again, building a rapport.
Right, because you don't want this to be the last house you sell to
Right.
them.
Or, yeah, you want them to keep you top of mind in the future. So one thing that we've done on our team is we have set up a series of canned emails. So once a buyer gets to a certain point in the process, we have this is what happens at this next step. It's all systematic. So we have canned emails for just bought a house, now what? So these are the 5 things that come next. The appraisal is in. Now what? So just, you know, we've talked about all the expectations up front of the process, but just reminding them this is what happens, because a lot of times there's, you know, during a 30-day transaction, there's lots of time that there's nothing going on in the transaction and people are wondering. So it just helps them stay connected and know what they need to stay on top of. You need to communicate with your buyers. Call them before they call you.
Yeah.
Even when they're, you know, they're in that process of there's like 10 days without anything happening, they're worried. So call them, connect with them, just say, hey, just checking in, you know, this is what we're expecting this week. When you start working with a buyer, or I should say when you get them under contract, it's really important to give them a list of preferred vendors. One of which being the home inspectors. You never want to tell a client, hey, use my guy. You want to provide 3 different home inspectors to work with. And, but of course advise them they can use anyone that they want. So when it comes time for the home inspection, you're going to notify the listing agent that the home inspection is taking place. You want to make sure that utilities are on, including gas. All locks are off of storage sheds or electrical panels. Animals are removed from the property. You want to make sure that sellers are not present at the inspection. That might be a good, you know, clarifying question for the listing agent is just, are the sellers going to be there? Because it's really uncomfortable if they are. It's really important to attend the wrap-up with your buyer at the end of an inspection. And that usually lasts about 30 to 45 minutes, but that's gonna help you explain to the cross-sale agent the repairs that you're asking for. And it also is a service that you should be providing your client. Once you get the home inspection report, you're going to review the report and the summary with the buyer. And you'll discuss any items that they feel that they'd like replaced or repaired. And it's really important right now to make sure that they're realistic with their expectations.
Yeah.
We're not in a market where the sellers are doing a lot of repairs. But there are certain things like the big ticket items like roof or AC or plumbing or electrical repairs that if they don't do that repair for this client, they likely be doing for the next. So it's really our job to help guide our clients. We want to do what's in their best interest, but we also don't want them to say, I want 32 items fixed, because that is just not realistic. And it's not in a home. So that's really important to think about. So then you get to writing the BINSR. And when you write the BINSR, you're going to want to make sure that it's very specific. You're going to refer to page numbers and item numbers that you're going to be asking for. And once you've got that all written up, you're going to call the cross sale agent and let them know that it's coming. Once the inspection period's over and the BINSR is successfully negotiated, you're going to want to call the lender and let them know, hey, it's time to order the appraisal. If you don't do that, sometimes the lender might want to order the appraisal while you're in the home inspection period, and you don't want them to do that because you don't want your clients to have an expense that they may not even, if they can't reach an agreement on the BINSR, then there's no need for an appraisal. It just would be an added expense.
And especially in this market, because people are making offers so quickly, so they can get a home in this crazy market that we're in, that we're seeing probably 90% of the cancellations are BINSR cancellations.
Right.
So, and a lot of times lenders, like Lisa said, won't know. I always have the conversation with the lender prior, hold off on the appraisal until we're through the inspection period. Most lenders know, but don't assume, never assume anything.
Right.
And that way they won't cost them an extra $550 if they don't go through with the house.
And back to the actual inspections, when your client enters the home inspection period, you're going to tell them you want to do your inspections as soon as possible. A lot of times people would just, if it's a Monday, they'd rather wait till Saturday because they're off work. They're actually losing time, because if they wait till Saturday and realize, wow, this AC's on its last leg, I probably need an AC inspection, the seller doesn't have to grant you any additional time other than your 10 days. So it's really important to do it as soon as possible. So once the appraisal is in, you're going to send a canned email just saying, the appraisal's in, here are our next steps. So I have found when I'm working with clients, they're super excited about looking for homes. And it's really important when we're working with buyers, we want referrals. They're super excited about looking at homes, and they're probably talking to their friends and family about it. I've had clients just say, gosh, Lisa, this is great. You're working so hard for us. This is fantastic. What can we do to help you? Well, you can give my name to your friends and family that are looking. And I've gotten referrals that way. So, do the ask. Don't forget to do that. So when loan documents are at the title company, you should call and schedule your buyer's signing appointment. Make sure it works for your buyer, and you should definitely attend that as well.
In a normal world.
In a normal world, right. We're in COVID right now, and we haven't been able to go on our buyer signings, but even that said, you should be available for your clients during the time that they're signing, because they may have questions and want to reach out. So when it closes, you're going to want to meet the buyer at the house, obviously, and give them their key out of the lockbox. Bring a cute sold sign, take some pictures. I'm sure they'll appreciate down the road that you did that. One thing that we like to do on our team is what we call the unexpected extras. So we will try and get over to the property a little bit earlier and put a big red bow on the property and a little chalkboard sign that says welcome, whatever the family's name is. And we like to stock the refrigerator with, if they have kids, juice boxes, waters, maybe champagne and some champagne flutes. It's fun to have a little something, if you can find out during the process what their favorite snacks are, maybe having some snacks there for them. It's a great time to kind of, make it a little special for them. And once you've got that buyer closed, you're going to want to continue to market to them. So if you have any type of, we do a monthly mailing and also a monthly email on our team. You're going to want to put them in your database and start mailing to them. And it's really important to continue to be in touch with them. So I would call them, like put a note in your calendar 2 weeks after closing, just check in with them. Hey, is there anything, how's everything going? Are you having any issues with the property? What can I help you with? 6 months after closing, doing the same. And on their 1 year anniversary, maybe, what we've started doing on our team is every anniversary of their home purchase, we'll go ahead and we'll prepare hey, here's what your home is worth now. So they can see, how their home is appreciating, which is exciting for them. So that's kind of it on the buyer side. Again, it's just super important. We feel, when buyers are excited about looking, they just say, hey, come meet me at the property, show me this house. It's just one of the most important things that you can do is just say, hey, can we meet at a coffee shop first? I'd like to take you through an hour, just give me about an hour's worth of your time so I can set expectations, because that just helps everything in the long run.
Yeah. Some other things, I want to go back to the unexpected extras just because I think it's so important. And, it's the final touches on your presentation for them. And so, we get a huge response from the Beau. We've also brought like laundry baskets full of toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning supplies, just kind of stuff like that. I've paid for lawn service and pool service for the first month that they're there, because there's a lot to do, moving and decorating, painting, and doing all sorts of stuff. So having your yard taken care of, that was really well received. We've done personalized doormats with their initial or their name on the doormat to bring over. What I like about that is it stays in front of them, right? The lawn service came and went, but that doormat is there,
right?
For the next 5 years.
When you order that doormat, it may take like a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks to get that. You can use that as an excuse to drop it off and see them again and check in and see how things are going. And
back to the when Lisa was talking about after they get into contract and when you start working with them, following them on social media, it's really a great way to stay connected with your clients and to continue to do that. We have friends list, and all of my clients are in that list, so I can just follow them if I want to. And then you can see, and they're not just your client at that time, they're going to be your client for life. So remember, if it's first-time buyers, they're probably going to have a family, and you can follow that. And then guess what? When they have, not usually the first child, but definitely the second, they usually call you and you're selling the house and helping them buy the next one. So you can keep involved with that, but you really need to stay in front of them as much as possible, even after the closing. Right. But we talk to so many buyers and sellers that have worked with agents and have been sorely disappointed. And so you don't want to be that agent. You always want to, and we ask, are we living up to our expectation? Is there anything else that I can be doing for you that might make this a better experience for you? Because I want them to walk away thinking, Hello Neighbor team hangs the moon. So that's always our goal.
Good.
Lisa's great. Lisa's great she's a great agent, but she's really good with buyers.
Actually, just going above and beyond.
Yeah, above
Yeah,
and beyond.
always. And
Yeah.
communicate.
And-
A lot of agents just, they, especially with the hard phone calls, they don't want to make the hard phone calls, and you have to make the hard phone calls. We call it eating the frog. Eat it early and
Yeah.
eat it often, but eat it, because the longer it waits, just like, it just gets harder and harder to swallow. So,
Well, and yeah, sometimes when you have to have those hard conversations, it's always a good idea to just kind of write it out and then, rehearse it and then
Right.
make that phone call. When you've got the low appraisal or they didn't get that house, things like that, you just, like Martha said, just go ahead and we pull the Band-Aid off and just, get it over with.
yeah, well, you do.
Then
And,
they'll respect that.
well, yeah, and confirm that you understand they're upset. Confirm that, validate them, and then apologize and move on.
Mhm.
But you've got to do it, and if you don't, that's when people get in trouble, I think. Okay, so on to the listing part, and I'll give you a copy of this when I get done. So again, much like the buyer, your job as the listing agent, a little bit different scenario, because we found as a listing agent, you're either a hero or a zero. It's really hard to fall anywhere in between, so we always want to try to be that hero. And you can do that by setting the expectations right up front. Just, here's what you can expect from my service, and here's what I expect from you, Mr. Seller. So one of the best things you can do for yourself to ensure a better listing experience is know that contract. Know the contract as any agent, but especially as a listing agent. You need to know the contract in and out, because it leans so heavily towards the buyer. The sellers have very few, I hate to use the word rights, but they have very few protections in the contract as the seller. And so if you know the contract in and out, you can at least try to protect your seller a little bit better, just by knowing what does fall in their realm and what falls in the buyer's realm, which is probably 75% of the contract. I think your job as the listing agent is almost, I always use the metaphor as like the coach, because you have to know what everybody's doing all the time. You need to stay on top of the buyer's agent. You need to stay on top of the buyer's lender. You need to stay on top of the title company, of the inspection report, of the appraisal. You just need to make sure everything is moving along smoothly. And the contingencies that are built into the contract are being lifted as they go. I always tell my sellers, we have 3 hurdles to get over. The first hurdle is the 10-day inspection period, or the due diligence period. The second is the appraisal. And the third is the loan contingency. And unfortunately, the loan contingency goes right up until 3 days prior to contract. So that's, usually it's fine, but they do need to know that right up front. And I'm not afraid to tell my sellers anything, because I think in order for me to represent them the best that I can, they need to be well aware that, everything looks great, but that loan contingency is right up until 3 days prior to the close. Once we get final approval, I let them know everything that's going on with those buyers' lender. So they're aware of that. So when I go in for a listing appointment, I usually walk the house with the sellers. Oftentimes, Lisa and I will go together on listing appointments. It's just kind of good to have some reinforcement there. But I'm making notes the entire time, and I'm taking pictures with my iPhone, because sometimes I'm just writing so fast I won't be able to read it. And then I get home and I'm like, was it a gas range or an electric range? I can't remember. Or was there a spa in the backyard? I think there was, but just to be safe, and I always clear it with the sellers, do you mind if I take pictures as we go through? So I'm just snapping pictures of everything as we go up. And then when I'm done touring the house, then I have the conversation with the sellers. I don't go from room to room and say, oh, that needs to go, or you need to paint this room, or you need to do that. I walk the entire property first so I can take it all in. That way I can assess if there is a lot to do, what needs to be done first. And usually it's decluttering. That's usually what happens. And you know, you can present that in a way that's very not offensive, and but you have to tread lightly because this is someone's home that they love and cherish. And but I try to tell them, if you do what I tell you to do, we'll get your home sold for the price that we are going to discuss. But you need to listen to me. I do this for a living, and you need to have trust. And so, and going into that, again, setting the expectation, it goes a little bit easier. And rarely do we get pushback about the suggestions that we make as far as decluttering, mowing the backyard, picking up the dog poop. I mean, just the things that you think everybody knows they should do, but they don't necessarily always do that. I always want to find out why they want to move and what is their motivation. There might be a sale for me on the other end of this if they want to buy another home. And then I want to find out if the house has been listed previously with another agent and what the experience was like with my sellers with that other agent. So I can make sure that
You don't do those things.
I don't do those things. Hopefully I don't, but and so I can be more sensitive to that. And every seller's different. You know, some sellers are real sensitive about things, and other sellers just want to do whatever it takes to get the property sold.
Do you just, has the home been listed before? If they say yes, will you then say, and how did that go?
Yeah,
How do you
exactly.
feel about that?
How did that go? Or
Yeah.
have you, you know, I'll even, not even necessarily that property, but, you know, have you sold other homes? And if they say, yeah, I'm like, how did that experience go for you? And, you know, was there something that agent didn't do that I could do to make this a better experience for you? So, so once you've gone through the property and made your suggestions, I always go home and send them an email that surmises our conversation. So they have a honey-do list in front of them. You know, dear Mr. and Mrs. Seller, so nice to be in your home. Thank you for trusting me with this project. And here's what we discussed that you can do to your home in order to get it market ready. So once the home is market ready, and I think it's really important for your sellers to not come out live until that home is ready to go.
Absolutely.
So
And sometimes it takes more than 1 or 2 trips over to the property to ensure that it is ready. It's just when you lose time on the market, it's the first impression, right?
it is. That's why we always say Cinderella came out in a ball and stilettos for a reason. She didn't come down in ripped jeans and flip-flops.
That's a good one.
There's always new ones. So once the property is ready to go on the market, you want to devise a listing book. And a lot of times your favorite title company can do that for you. It'll have the CC&Rs, it'll have the demographics, school information, community information, transportation information. And they usually will put it in a hardbound binder for you, and you can just set it right on the counter. Next to that, you want to do flyers. Now you can get as fancy and as you want, or you can do simple flyers from the MLS. There's a flyer platform on the MLS. Then you can just print those off as well. We usually have title companies do nice high gloss pictures and have those flyers right by the buyer book as well. I like to leave a copy of the purchase agreement with the sellers so they have time to look it over. I don't sit down necessarily and go through the whole contract with them until we have an offer, but I think it's good for them to understand the inspection period and the contingencies and everything. They need an opportunity to look at that contract before it comes through with real numbers on it. The other thing that I do is prepare a net sheet. So once we've decided on a purchase price, I do a net sheet for them. And I always pad my net sheet a little bit, just so I'd rather have them walk away with a little bit more than what I told them they were going to walk away with. again, hero or a zero. So I'm doing everything I can to look like a hero. So if, even sometimes they'll say, well, I want to start, let's just say I want to start at 480 and you think the house is probably worth about 450. If they insist on that, then I always try to write in a price reduction program into the listing agreement. So they know, all right, well, we'll start at 480, but that'll be for 5 days. If we don't get any showings, and again, streamliners or StreamYarders, this isn't a normal market. The market that we're in right now, price reductions aren't really happening, but the market will go back someday.
It will. We've been through lots of different markets, and this is definitely not.
So you just need to know how to manage both of them. So write it right in. After 5 days, we're going to drop it to 475. 5 more days, we're going to drop it to 470. Yeah. So again, the expectations are set for those sellers, and they know what to expect. You'll know in the first 10 days, even in a healthy, normal market, if you're overpriced.
Yeah. And that's, it is obviously a little bit different for luxury listings than the listings that were, 500 and under are typically going pretty fast.
Let's see. So when I bring my comps to the seller to help determine the price, I always have really strong data behind it. So I try to make my CMA as strong as possible. We're fortunate enough to have access to the Cromford report, so I can also show them, and you can do this without the Cromford report, it just takes some math, but in your neighborhood, the difference between the listing price and the selling price is 2% or 1%, or it's -1%, so which means they're getting more than asking price. But you need to give them an idea of what they can expect when they do get an offer. Again, assume they know nothing. Typically, it's going to take 60 days to sell your home and then another 30 to 45 days to close it. So you want to lay everything out as clearly as you can for those sellers, and don't assume that they know anything. And even if it's been 20 years since they've sold a house, trust me, it's changed a lot in 20 years. And it's always changing. So the tough conversations to have with sellers are you current on your HOA payments and your property taxes? We come across this more often than we would like to, where we'll find out from the preliminary title report that there's a lien on the property of some sort. So it's a good idea if you know that right up front, and you can just address it with the title company. You can even address it with, when you get an offer, with the, I don't know that I would address it with the buyer's agent, actually. They'll see the preliminary title report. But if you're, a lot of them won't even check it. But if you're aware of it, it's just always, you can put it on the settlement, the estimated settlement sheet for them as well, so they know once they pay off all those liens, this is what their proceeds will be. So, it's going to be as big of a deal as you make it. I just had one recently, and we had some property taxes that were due, and they were really leery to tell me that, and I don't blame them, but I just acted like, everybody in the world has that. It's no big deal. It's just one more thing they're going to put on there, and that they were fine and put their mind at ease. So once the property's live, you've put the property in the MLS, I always go back and do a search for that property like I would if I had a buyer. So if it's a property in Mesa, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath without a pool, I search like I would if I had a client looking for that, just to make sure that it comes up. And then I'll search for it for another way. I'll search for it with the subdivision name, or I'll search for it with the zip code, just to make sure that all of that is coming through, to make sure that other agents can find it. So when you also put it in the MLS, and in this market, this is really important. You need to talk about when they want the property to be seen, right? So when are they going to allow showings? If it's a vacant property, that's easy, but a lot of times your properties are going to be occupied, and you need to deal with kids' schedules and animals and work schedules. So be really clear when you put it in the MLS, and also make sure that you really understand what your seller's needs are so you can try to accommodate those. In this market, you can, buyers will do whatever they need to see the house. So the sellers are definitely driving that cart. We're seeing all sorts of things like showings on Saturday from 10 to 2 and Sunday from 1 to 3. Offers will be submitted on Monday. Again, that's not always how it is, so that'll change. But you want to be able to make sure that you can accommodate your sellers, because it's a drag to have somebody through your home all weekend.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Explain to the sellers how the lockback works. They oftentimes don't know that and understand that it is a small computer and it actually tracks everybody that comes in and out of that home when they go in and when they leave. You acted like you wanted to add something.
Well, are you going to talk about booking through showing time?
No, you can.
Okay. So, when it comes to showings, another handy thing that you can do for your sellers and for yourself is have the appointments come through showing time. So basically what happens is you'll get a text that someone wants to see the property and an email and sometimes a phone call. It all depends on the way you want to set it up. But the nice thing about booking everything through showing time is when the agent is done showing the property, it emails that agent automatically and asks for feedback. So that way, when you're working through this process, you can forward that feedback to your seller directly.
There's an option on showing time to have the feedback go directly to your seller. Don't choose that option.
No.
Sometimes agents can be thoughtless and put things on there that might be hurtful.
Yeah.
So it's always best to try to filter it first.
Yeah. When you use that feedback, a lot of times if you walk into a listing and think, well, they probably needed to paint that living room, but they don't want to do it. I mean, if a seller keeps hearing that over and over again with the feedback that's coming in, they'll make that change. Right. So it's just use that feedback to support what you think needs to be done to sell the house.
Showing time is an app or just a website?
It's an app.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a wonderful app.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing that's nice about showing time for anybody that hasn't used it yet, there's all sorts of other attributes about that app that you can use that a lot of people don't know about. If you have a price reduction, you can go back through showing time and email every agent that's been through there in one click and one email to say 123 Main Street has just reduced their price to this. Or if you have a property that comes back on the market, we are seeing that quite a bit, you can email everybody that's been through that house. Devon Street just fell out of escrow. Would love, if you're still interested, to come take another look or submit an offer. And you just type the email and you say, send it to everybody that's been through, and it sends it out to all the agents, which is really, really nice. I've even had, I've had an agent email me showing time that her offer wasn't accepted. So you can use it for that too. If you want to notify all the agents that have been through your listing that you've accepted another offer, you can do it that way. I wasn't offended at all that it was through showing time. I thought it was a very effective, efficient way to do it. So,
and one cool thing about showing time too is that you can, as the listing agent, you can customize the questions that you want to ask the agents. Like, were you considering making an offer? What would you change about this home if you had to pick one thing? You could just be very specific. It's really cool.
Yeah. I want to back up really quick, and I hate to do this, but I missed something that I think is important, especially since we are in such a seller's market. We work really hard for our fees, but we're also paid very well. Get professional photos done.
Absolutely.
Please.
Yeah.
Your sellers deserve that. Even if it's it doesn't matter the price of the home. Have good photos taken. You can do professional photos for $80.
Mm-hmm.
And it just does your sellers such a disservice when
you use your iPhone, even if it is an iPhone 11.
Well, and the lighting's not right, and so in a luxury listing, you'll want to go all out and do
Right.
twilight photos, drone photography, major luxury brochures. That's a whole different class on luxury listings. But we're firm believers that you really should have professional photos inside and out, and a lot of times even of the community. So a lot of photography companies have stock photos of the neighborhoods, like they would have stock photos of Val Vista Lakes or Morrison Ranch or Johnson Ranch, and you just pay for those stock photos. So it's always nice to have them, even in this seller's market. It's good. So I digress. We move on. So once you're on the market, and again, this is more for a typical market and not the one that we're in. The one that we're in, you don't really even have time to communicate with your seller because you go on the MLS on Thursday and you have a contract by Sunday. In a more steady market, a lot of times homes will be listed for about 30 days. And in that time period, you really want to communicate with the sellers as much as possible. So we devise an email. It can come out on Tuesdays. I usually send mine out on Fridays, and it goes over all of the activity in the neighborhood for that week. So I start with all the homes that are listed, all the homes that are pending, and then I just copy and paste it over to the following week. This home sold for this much, and it was this many days on the market. This one's new to the market. And then on that same email, I also do a summary of all of the feedback that I've gotten from all of the people that have been through the house that week. So they always know that it comes on Friday. Again, I'm trying to call them before they call me. And if they know that you're going to be contacting them on Friday, a lot of times they'll wait. You're still going to have the seller that wants to talk to you 3 or 4 times a week, which is fine.
Or 3 or 4 times a day.
Or 3 or 4 times a day, which is fine too.
Yes.
But just by training them that's when you have your communication and they can expect it at that time. That's been very effective and a very good way to handle it. So I always, am advertising through all of the social media platforms. Even we're getting better all the time, even still with social media and running ads and boosting posts. If you can, it's good to arrange open houses and take the temperature of the sellers before you list the house about how they feel about open houses. Some listers are adamant about having them. They want them every weekend. They want them Saturday, Sunday. Yeah. They want them. And that's fine because we can usually find somebody to do them. You need to explain if it's not going to be you, explain that it might be somebody else. And then there's sellers that are adamant about not having them at all. So it's a great way to get exposure for the property. It's a better way to get exposure for the agent sitting the open house, but you need to be open to it. And so I always try to have that discussion with the sellers as well. So once you, and I'm sorry, I keep going back. The other thing that I think is really important that a lot of agents don't do when you first go on the listing appointment is bring the Zestimate with you, because your sellers are always going to go to Zillow and say, well, Zillow says my house is worth $550.
They probably also know what their neighbor down the street sold their house
for
9 months ago.
Yeah, so don't go into it cold, but go in ready to have that Zillow conversation. So once you have got a contract with them, and they're in contract, and in this market, you're probably going to be dealing with multiple offers. There's different programs out there that you can lay all your offers out and track the financing, the closing date, the closing costs, the home warranty, and all that. There's apps out there. We use just an Excel spreadsheet that we have on our team to do all that. But you want to sit down, if not in person, over the phone, and really plan on spending, a good hour with your sellers discussing everything. Your sellers don't know that an FHA loan appraisal is going to stay with that property for 180 days, and the conventional is not. So an FHA offer might come in $10,000 over, and a conventional offer might come in $7,000 over, and they'll want to just automatically go with the most expensive. So you need to explain to them what the difference is with the financing, and also with if there's any concessions. Again, we're not seeing any right now, but you know what the difference is with paying seller concessions, right down to the home warranty, right down to negotiating the HOA fees as well. So, and the closing time, the time frame. You know, what is the most ideal situation for them? And unfortunately, right now, sellers are able to pick that, which is great. But it will swing. So you want to spend some time and really make sure that they understand that and help them eliminate the ones that aren't going to work for them. And then you can narrow it down to one or two and discuss which is best for them.
Yeah, and that's when it kind of comes down to, you know, if you have 10 offers on a property and they're all very similar, that's how, you know, how you kind of express the emotion of the buyer comes into the play. So that's why we give advice to always write the letter or do the video, because if they've got 5 offers that are all the same and one has a really sweet couple that wants to live in the property and make it their forever home, they may lean more towards that. So just, something to review during that time.
So once you've selected the contract or selected the offer that there's going to be accepted, then you want to put on your calendar right away the closing date, your 10-day inspection date, and again, just like we did with the buyer, put everybody's phone number in your phone so you have it at your fingertips. A lot of times you'll forget and you'll need to call the title company, and then you have to go back and find an email from the title company and find their phone number, and it's just a pain. So right when you have the contract accepted, I put everything in my phone, I put everything in my calendar so I know when those time frames are going to run out. On the closing date, I put an alarm 10 days prior to closing, so I know in 10 days, Devon Street's going to be closing, and I know that's my cue to really step it up and make sure everything is going to run really smoothly these last 10 days. We also have canned emails that we send out for the sellers as well. You just sold your house, what's next?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a list of steps of what to expect next. The buyer's appraisal just came in. Here's the next steps. We're 10 days from closing. Here are the final steps. So they know every step of the way exactly what to expect and make sure that they're doing all the stuff that they need to do. When the inspection is scheduled, you need to let your sellers know when the inspection is, and again, confirm that all the locks are going to be off the gates and the doors and the electric boxes, all the pets will be removed, and find out if the sellers are going to be home during the inspection or not. I always encourage my sellers to not be there. I think it makes them uncomfortable when somebody's crawling around their roof and in their garages and all that. But a lot of times,
especially with, over the past few months,
they hadn't
had a place to go.
Right.
They definitely need to be gone for the wrap up.
So, and I always try to make them understand that they might be a buyer, if they're buying a home, and just explain, the buyers are going to want a little privacy to be able to discuss things. So we should probably give them a little elbow room, just like you're going to want when we go and do your inspection on your house. So always try to relate it, make them realize they're sellers, but they're also going to be buyers. So then when the inspection comes in and the Benzer comes in, this is probably the most challenging part of any contract, I think, is negotiating the Benzer. So in the market that we're in, sellers aren't really having to do much, but it is good to remind them, just as Lisa had mentioned with the buyers, that if the AC is on its last leg, these aren't the only buyers that are going to notice that. If you don't try to do something and work with that, the next buyers that come along are going to have the same comment and want the same repair. So your job as the listing agent is to help your sellers understand that concept and to understand what really should be taken care of and what really isn't that big of a deal. Once the Benzer's negotiated, woo, we've jumped the second hurdle, or the first hurdle. So now there's only 2 hurdles left. We got to get through the appraisal. And since you're such a great listing agent, the appraisal is probably going to be fine.
Yeah, but you shouldn't assume.
But you should never assume anything. So even when we think the appraisal is going to be 100%, every single transaction, we do an appraisal package for our appraisals, unless it's a desktop appraiser.
Yeah, and even with the desktop appraisal we were just talking about today, I found out that it was going to be a desktop appraisal, and I let the lender know, hey, I have very unique facts about this property, upgrades that were done recently that I need to get in front of that appraiser, and I was able to do that.
Oh,
They
that's
helped me
great
do
news.
that.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
So hopefully you heard that. Even if it is a desktop, you
Right.
can still
You
provide
you've got to hope that the lender tells you they're doing a
desktop appraisal. How did you find that out? Was it by
They-
accident, or did they
on
call you?
email.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's not a desktop appraisal, it's a good idea if you can meet the appraiser at the property with your appraisal packet, which has substantiating comps, any upgrades, the prices of those upgrades, receipts for any of the upgrades, and updating that's been done, explanations about the home that they might need. What were you going to say?
We also put showing history. So, gosh, this was a brand new listing. It hit the market. We had 30 showings. We had 4 offers, and we settled on this offer. But it's just to give them because, with the way the market's going right now, buyers there's such high demand that appraisals have yet caught up with that. So anything that we can show, hey, we didn't just have one buyer through and they offered 10,000 over asking. We had 30 buyers through and we had multiple offers, and this is what we chose.
And we always say in the appraisal package, we're happy to provide the additional offers upon request. So you don't have to give them the offers, but let them know that they're available for you. You never, just speaking of appraisers, you never want to step on their toes. They all know what they're doing, most of them, and do a very good job. So I always start my letter or my conversation with, I don't want to be in your way, but I do have extra documentation. Might be the same stuff that you have, but I'd like to present it to you. Would that be okay? And say yes. The other thing you want to put in your appraisal package is a full copy of the contract
with all the counters.
With all the counters and addendums. The lender will usually do that, but sometimes the lender might not have the most updated addendum. And so you want to make sure that your appraisal has the full contract in there. So once that's done, you get to send your seller the next scanned email that says the buyer's appraisal came in and at value with no repairs. So now we're moving forward. Here's the next steps. Just to touch on that, we years ago, we tried doing one email at the very beginning with a whole checklist of everything, and it was just overwhelming for buyers and sellers. And so through very good advice from our broker here, we cut it down into, we have 3 and 4 sometimes. So it's just being sent to them as you go. Plus it's a way for you to stay in front of them. But it's easier for them to manage if you just send them the next 4 or 5 things that are going to happen at a time. Because remember, they're thinking about what refrigerator to buy. So as you get closer to closing, that 10 days before, you want to remind them to turn off all their utilities, cancel the pool service, cancel the lawn guy, stop any newspaper subscriptions if they still have those, anything like that. Let them know that when you get a little bit closer to closing, that you will help them set up the title appointment for them to do the final signing. In a normal market, you always want to attend that as well. The title company will send you a settlement statement prior to the seller signing and the buyers, and you should always check that and double check it. Then call your clients and let them know that you did look at the numbers and everything looks good. Or if there was a problem that you saw that they were going to pay for the home the home warranty, and that was negotiated out of the contract, whatever. But just let them know that you're on top of it and that you've looked at it. And if there's an error, it will be corrected. If not, you'll see them at the signing appointment. So once the signing appointment has happened, there's all sorts of things that you can do as well. You know, you can, I've sent pizza to before or gotten them gift cards for Grubhub so they can eat while they're packing and moving boxes. You can also bring boxes over to your client's house. You can get labels made that say what room it's on. We've talked about doing this and then have them branded to you. Mm-hmm. So we would have Hello Neighbor Team labels that they can put on the boxes and bring the boxes over to them as well. What else have we done, Lisa, that has?
Well, we can provide them a list of vendors as well. So, you know, if they're running short on time and they want to get all their stuff out and have the carpets cleaned, have the house cleaned for the buyers, we can provide them with that info. Yeah, you know, with sellers, it's a little bit of a different process because they're, you know, depending on how organized they are, a lot of them, you know, have already packed a lot of things, but some of them are just literally right down to the wire.
Well, and we've been in, you know, the living rooms when they haven't been out and
That's a story.
It's a great story, actually. Help them try to pack up their house so they could get out on time. So, you know, your job just isn't a realtor to write the contract and make sure the paperwork runs smoothly. It is all encompassing. So if that means, you know, not necessarily going over there and packing, but saying, you know, do you need me to try to find somebody to help you get moved or get packed, or you know, do you need Fido taken care of for a couple of hours while you do this? Whatever it is, always look for the opportunities
to be helpful beyond just, you know, the contract.
Yeah.
Right.
So once they've closed, again, you know, I give them a couple of days to get settled in their new house. Hopefully it's this is all happening at the same time and you're getting to act as the buyer's agent as well as the seller's agent. But call and make sure everything is gone okay. Did you get your proceeds? Did everything run smoothly? You know, were you happy with my service? Did I live up to your expectations? Is there anything else I can do for you in the future? And then you want to enroll them in your client appreciation and start keeping in touch with them. Even if they move out of state, they still have relatives here they might refer you to. And again, it's a great time to ask for a referral right when, through the process, but certainly at the closing. More so at the closing, I think, with a seller than a buyer because they're getting money. And so that makes them very happy. So it's a good time for them to agree with, oh yeah, I would love to give you a referral. So that's kind of it for the listing side. Did you have any questions, Jessica?
I mean, I'm brand new, so I have a million questions. But
no, ask away.
Just in general, nothing comes to mind right now. Just in general.
You're with the XP?
Yes, I just joined, like very brand new. Yes,
Awesome.
and it's like a whole life change for me. So
yeah.
So I've been coming to the classes. We just did the appraisal class the other day with Georgie.
Oh yeah, she's great.
And a lot of things you said, I was like, oh, she said that.
Yeah.
She definitely knows her stuff.
Well, and if you go to every single appraisal class you can as a new agent.
Yeah, you can never learn enough.
You can't. And it's always changing, and appraisers do things differently. You know, it's not a computer that just shoots out some numbers. They all value things differently. Right. So that's probably one of the best things that we've done through our career is really learn how to understand what a home's going to be valued at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of the stuff you guys are saying, just as a person, I'm like, why would somebody not do that? Because I'm OCD about it. I don't, you know, so I'm like, all right, well, I guess maybe I'll be good at this. Because you know, a lot of it's like, well, why wouldn't you do that?
There are a lot of details.
Yeah. There are a lot of details. The other thing that, as far as having a better listing and buying experience for your clients, is and it's taken us some time, but we have systems in place, like our canned emails, because, if you have one listing, it's, or even two, it's easier to stay on top of. But when you have 5 listings and 3 buyers and a team,
Yeah.
you want things to run as smoothly as they can with every single client, so they all get the same level of service. And the best way to do that is make sure you have your systems in place.
Yeah.
It's the very best thing that you can do. And if you can set that up early, you might need to modify it as you go along in your career, but it will behoove you to set those up early.
For sure. Well, those of you in StreamYard land, if you have any questions for us, I don't think we said our phone numbers.
We didn't. We just jumped right in. We just jumped right into StreamYard. You were so excited. Talking about our favorite topics.
Yes. So I am, if you have any questions regarding the buyer side, the stuff that we presented today, I can certainly send you an outline of the class. My phone number is 602-432-6529. And if you want to email me that request, it's lisa@helloneighborteam.com.
Say your phone number again, just because you went fast.
Phone number 602-432-6529.
Okay. And if you have any questions about the listing side of it, feel free to reach out to me. It's Martha Fuller, and my phone number is 480-440-4244. That's 480-440-4244. And my email is martha@helloneighborteam.com. And we'd love to hear from you. Lisa and I are very passionate about helping our industry maintain its professionalism, and that we are forever setting an example to our clients and to the other agents.
And we're all about raising the bar.
Yeah.
So,
Any bar. No. Raising the real
Weekend
estate
is
bar.
coming.
It is Friday. Anyway,
All right.
thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.